Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no copay. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hey everyone, this is a friendly reminder that we are here for entertainment purposes only. We may not even be that entertaining at times, but this is not medical advice. Talk to your doctor, check with your healthcare professionals before making any lifestyle changes or medicine changes. What we're talking about is our clinical experience and what we've seen. And so if you really want our advice, you can consult us. You can actually consult me as a doctor, or you can consult my guest and get all your questions answered. But we can't give free medical advice because we can't pay our bills with that, but we can help to educate you a bit and allow you to think a little bit. And always reach out to your medical professional before making any lifestyle changes. Thank you. This episode of Life's Best Medicine is brought to you by the good people of Keto Mojo and Health Code. Gosh, this is on a personal level. One of my patients I just saw today came in, and her husband recently passed away from a terminal illness, ongoing illness. And, we started talking, and she said, one thing, Health Code, he was able to get that down. And that was the one thing in life he looked forward to. He would get his chocolate macadamia nut and he would mix it with some peanut butter, or she would throw in some extra avocado just to make sure he was getting his nutrition. And he stuck around longer than anticipated, but it's really nice that a company like Health Code could really contribute to his well-being and in his last days, give him something that he enjoys. So I appreciate them for what they're doing and for providing good nutrition, and for people who need it, with avocado oil and coconut oil and whey protein. They're doing such a good job. So it's nice to see that my seniors or people who are really busy can just blend something up. That's my go-to a lot of times if I'm too busy at lunchtime to take much of a break and I'm hungry. That's what I'll do. So Health Code, thank you for sponsoring this episode. And also Keto Mojo, I'm using your product all the time with my patients. I've used it since I started this practice, and you've done such a great job of bringing the community together, giving me another tool to help with patients, seeing if they're on track. The ketones really tell us it's like a lie detector test, and also is a lie detector test for the continuous glucose monitor, because a finger stick is more accurate. So I can see, exactly if their sugars are running low or high. And so Keto Mojo has been my go-to tool. So I'm very appreciative of them reaching out and sponsoring this podcast. So enjoy this episode. And again, there's a discount code that I have with Health Code, and that's MetHealth, METHEALTH, all capital. And also Keto Mojo, I do have a discount link on my website. If you're interested, I'll have that in the show notes also. But thank you for sponsoring this episode, and sit back and enjoy. Hello and welcome back to the Life's Best Medicine podcast. This is a fun one for me because I like real stories. I like testimonies. I like stories of overcoming adversity and persevering and going through life and learning and having these little epiphanies and struggles and being on track, off track, being in control, out of control. So Karen Lee, who's a patient of mine, was gracious enough to agree. I had to beg her for a while, and I had to talk to all of her people. No, I'm just kidding. She was very willing to come on. She's a very private person, but to have her on. Karen, welcome. So great to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here today.
Yeah, and your story is so impactful. So tell people, you reach out to me, you're trying to get into better shape and lose weight, things like that. And tell people what your journey has been like from the beginning. Like when you were a kid, was weight an issue, or did it develop later in life? And anything in your childhood that you say, yeah, that might have contributed to what I'm going through now.
Okay. Yeah, I was the oldest of 4 children in a business family. And so I was always one that was very responsible and was given a lot of responsibility in return to that. And I never really had the opportunity to develop stress relief, because there was always one more stressor in our home because of the business. And being the oldest of four, I tried to take some of the burden off my mom by kind of taking care of the kids, helping them with homework, helping them with their projects, reading to them. And I didn't really know how to handle the stress, but I did find that as the stress got too much for me, I would find that cookies would be really good. I could sneak a few and they calm me down, and I could push through with having those cookies. As I started activities in school myself, I remember being a candy striper at age 13, 14, working in the neonatal section of the hospital, cleaning incubators out and taking water around to the patients. I knew a little bit of Spanish from my school Spanish, and it was very nerve-wracking to see these little tiny babies struggle to live. And I remember coming out of the hospital, and at the bottom of the stairs, there was a candy machine. And I would go down after I was all done. And my reward for, of course, doing that was to just pop those quarters in the candy machine and get candy bars. Sometimes I got caught at home, and but they didn't know who actually got into all those chocolate chips and that disappeared out of the pantry.
You'd have chocolate on the corner of your mouth. Go, no, no, it wasn't me. I didn't
It
do that.
wasn't
I have
me.
no idea who
That's
did that.
right. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so was weight an issue at that time when you were kind of turning to food more, or was that not an issue yet?
Nope, because at school they had those big, huge chocolate chip cookies and sugar cookies and stuff. I got in line on all my breaks for those. And so my weight started creeping up. My mother was a big Jack LaLanne fan, and she always did her exercises. We were always pretty active, bicycling and swimming. We had a swimming pool, so we were always pretty active, but my weight crept up as my stress came on, because at age 13, I started helping manage one of the hamburger stands for my dad. I had a work permit with a driver's license at age 14. So I actually did hiring and firing and sales and inventory, all that, as well as driving my brothers and sisters to their activities or the job sites, or picking up money from the businesses. So I had a lot of responsibility, but there was a soft serve ice cream machine at work, and I could definitely partake of root beer floats or whatever I wanted out of them. So as my weight went up, my mom decided I needed to be on the grapefruit diet. So there began the eggs and grapefruit diet, and it was just terrible. The minute I could get off of it, and get out from under where anybody could see anything, that's what went into my house or into my mouth. I think I lost 10 pounds and then promptly put it back on. Then came the aids, the little caramels that you put in your mouth, and mom would buy me them by the box. And then I'd try to just not eat, because I thought, well, if I didn't eat, then they would get off my case. But it just never worked.
And so your parents were on you, and then you're trying like all these different things, and who knows, Slim Fast and different things. I remember that. It's funny. I remember that when I was struggling with as a kid too, my mom had, it was probably photocopied like 300 times because everyone just kept passing along it. But it was that grapefruit diet. You have grapefruit and coffee, and then you don't eat stuff, or it's like a crazy thing. And then there was a cabbage diet where you could eat this cabbage soup every day and lose weight, and all these things that you could see that were passed from person to person to person to try to help. And everyone did it, and they had success, and then they went back, just like what you're saying, and you go back to gaining more weight than you started with.
Yeah. Then off to college I went, and I lived in the dormitories, but on the weekends I came home and worked. And I was in college about a year, met a fella, and we married and moved up to the Portland, Oregon area, and started raising my 3 sons. And I spent a lot of time with Weight Watchers. I got a Weight Watcher scholarship too, but for some reason it kept the weight down at bay through my pregnancies. But of course, my favorite breakfast was Fruit Loops in the morning, not knowing that I was probably harming myself knowing I was harming myself by weight going up, but not knowing I was harming my child's health too. I didn't know that at the time. So I went through 14 years of babysitting and taking care of my children, and then went back to school in 1985. I was my last child went to school full time, and I decided that I didn't want to flip hamburgers at McDonald's the rest of my life. I decided I should find out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And it's kind of a funny thing that happens in our 30s. And I looked at the ads and I thought, nothing pays anything. I mean, I guess I could be a janitor and that pays pretty good, but do I want to do that? And I decided I'm going to go to school. And my dad had given us $2,000 at Christmas time. And I decided to go back to school because, of course, when I quit college, he says, that's on you. I'm done. You're never going to go back to school again because you decided to get married. So anyway, I took his $2,000 and I went back to school. And my 3 sons were in school during the day, and I did school during the day, and I did that for 7 years. First got my bachelor's degree in general science with a minor in biology, and then was accepted into Pacific University in their master's program for physical therapy. And I graduated in 1992. Now, during that time, in any medical school, if you don't pass with 80, you get kicked out. 80% or you get kicked out. And I was raising 3 boys, had a husband, and doing full coursework from 8 in the morning until 5 at night. And my youngest son traveled with me to the campus. My 2 older boys were in high school and they stayed home with their dad. And so we did that for 3 years. And I graduated in 1992. My weight stayed down fairly well with swimming. And because I was the old lady in the class, and I had to keep up with these young whippersnappers.
And how old were you at this time?
I was 42.
Okay, 40. Yeah.
So I tried to compete. I was swimming a mile a day in the pool, in the Pacific pool, and we were broke. We just barely made ends meet. There was not any money for going out and binging on any cookies or anything else. My priority was seeing that my sons had shoes, clothes, and books and their activities. And so that kind of held my weight down. But when I graduated in 1992, I had a new paycheck, and it was my first paycheck I ever had that was a real paycheck with vacation time and extra money so I could go back to the eating. And it was a high stressful job. I'd learned that from my youth. And it wasn't until about 10 years later, when I came home from work, my husband was sitting dead in his chair from a heart attack because he had diabetes and he was having silent heart attacks. And I cannot remember the first 6 months, maybe after he died. All I remember is eating and crying. And I remember finally I went to work, and somebody changed the schedule, gave me different patients that I wasn't familiar with, and I started crying and I couldn't quit crying. So I went, I worked for a hospital, so employees have free help there. So I went and talked to the person that I could talk to, and she says, okay, I'm going to send you to your medical profession, your doctor, and you go and see her right now. And right now you're on leave. And when she signs for you to come back, you can come back. And it was almost like, oh my God, you don't understand. If I don't work my 2 jobs because my husband is dead, I'm going to lose my house. This is just not going to, she says, no, we're not going to talk about this now. And so I went to my doctor. She gave me some antidepressants, and they made me sleep. I slept for probably 6 weeks, slept, cried, and ate. And she sent me to a counselor, and I counseled with her a little bit. And it was a slow walk back from that.
How,
So
how old was your husband when he passed away?
56 years old.
So you have a husband 56. So you see, and this is why people ask my passion is like, okay, this guy 56, life stress, struggles with money, diabetic, poor health, it sounds like, and dying at such a young age. Well, I'm 53, so that's a young age to me. Other people may think that's ancient, but like what an upheaval in your life, and what you turn to is food for
Yes.
comfort, right?
And
Crying and food.
if I hadn't had food, now remember, I was raised big girls don't cry. So I wasn't crying up until this time. But it was almost like I was so angry at him. How dare him be so selfish to eat all those donuts and stuff and leave me with all this big mess and not being able to make, because he had his bills, I had my bills, and Medicare doesn't give you any coverage when you're a young widow. That's it. You got to work or you lose it all. And because I did, by the 10-year mark, I did have all my school loans paid off because I made double payments on those and paid my school loans off. So I didn't have that, but I didn't want to lose the house either. So anyway, in that, I crawled out. I met another gentleman, remarried, and moved to Canada, where he had high school children. And I did not feel it was right to rip those children out of their homes, and I needed to move on. So I sold my house and I moved to Canada, and which I had new different stressors that were going back and forth across the border through the COVID time and the border changes and stuff. But my weight from where my husband died, I couldn't get rid of it. I kept binge eating. I kept hitting the sugar. I kept hitting the cookies. My new husband is a new person I could bake for, and he never had that much sugar in his life. And but he enjoyed my cookies. Even the dogs eat cookies, because I love to bake, and I thought if I could just bake, that relaxes me, So finally, I wasn't feeling so good. My blood pressure was going up. My weight made it up to 250. And I started Optavia in 2014. And I lost my weight, all of it. Looked great, felt great, but went back to trying to eat and I couldn't eat. And so the weight, all that I took off, started coming back up and coming back up. It was like, I felt like my fingernails were on the chalkboard saying, help me, I can't help it. I'm just going to eat. This pain of not being heavy enough or not being light enough, so that I could keep up with my husband. Because my husband's racing motorcycles. My husband is driving a tractor and gardening and riding horses and all this stuff. I have 50 acres and a river, and I can't walk down to the river. I'm getting short of breath as my weight started going up.
Joint pains and all the other stuff.
Everywhere.
Headaches. Yeah.
Oh, terrible. And so I started listening to low-carb doctor because I noticed at work where I was working, it was a place where most every single patient that I had was morbidly obese, extremely morbidly obese. And I had time to start some research in between patients. I had even done a marathon, half a marathon. No, it was a full marathon. And what I did is, because I wouldn't work out when I get home, I decided if I signed up for a marathon, I'd have to lose weight. I'd just have to. I could exercise it away. And I am a physical therapist. I'm a big hypocrite. Why can't I do this? I've tried everything now. I can't blame my dead husband. I can't blame my new husband. It's on me. It's on me. So as I started doing research, I found the low-carb docs. I started listening to Dr. Lenzkes. I started studying and looking at going back to my biology and my chemistry and all my stuff. And this is not right. And then I found Ivor Cummins. It's like, oh my God, what? They're lying to us? And I just was thirsty for everything Ivor had to say. And then, of course, that led to Tobbs. I started reading every book he ever wrote. Then I went to the low carb in South Africa, and the low carb stuff that came out of Australia. I didn't even know America had low carb until I found Dr. Lenzkes' site. And it's like, these people have lied to us. They lied to us about fats. They've lied to us about salts. And I started following the low carb. And I went to my doctor and he says, oh, we need to put you on statins. We need to put you on this medicine. We need to change and give you a second. And I really want you to start on diabetic medicine. I says, no, I don't want to do that.
And blood pressure too. Your blood pressure was really high too.
Right. So I quit my doctor and I called from Canada down to Southern California and got an appointment with Dr. Lenzkes. And I started doing, I said, this is important to me. I know this is the right place. I'm doing the right thing and I'm not going to mess up. He gave me a continuous glucose monitor. And it's like, oh my gosh, I walked out of his office, had a little simple meat burrito and boing, it went up. It's like, oh no, the sugar. Oh.
Yeah, and
So
people don't realize, I push the continuous glucose monitor. Just this week, I probably have 20 examples where people were shocked by what they saw. A good friend of mine, he's doing fantastic. Hey, Bob, he was at out of town, and he drinks black coffee all the time. The coffee was so bad at the hotel he was staying at that he grabbed a couple of the creamers, just threw them there to make it taste good, and then his sugar went crazy from the International Delight creamer that we would just keep pumping in there to make it taste sweet and good, and so you don't realize the impact of that. Another patient, creamer was her problem also, like 2 in the same day, just randomly, but also little things like cauliflower crust pizza, whatever. So when you could see that burrito, you eat it, you see it yourself, you say, oh, I don't want to do that, right? Then you change.
Right.
I don't have to tell you. You knew, and you told me by the time you saw these things.
Yeah. So I stayed pretty firm for about 6 weeks. And then my dad got sick. He fell and he died. And it was like, oh my gosh, I had to have the food. Now, again, I have to remember that because I had food, I didn't do other stuff like alcohol, drugs, et cetera, et cetera. The food was my drug of choice. And I chose the most high sugar content as I could get. And I got really down. I very discouraged. And I thought, you know what? Maybe I just need to learn to live fat and just die and get it over with. And Dr. Lenzkes said, nope. Let's stop and we can do this one more time. I think he did that 4 rounds of me going up and down, up and down.
Yeah, and I just saw you because when you're on, you're on. It's just like a lot of us, once we go off, we're off. Like it's just like alcohol. If someone has an alcohol problem, they're fine. Then once they have one drink and then they're a disaster for 2 or 3 weeks, and then they get it back and they go, okay, I'm ready to get off this. And then it's a struggle. It is a big struggle. And you went through the biggest, and we've talked about this, and you live up to that also, is the biggest downfall is either going to be lack of family support at home or stress. And usually they go hand in hand. If you're stressed, you probably don't have good family support too. So losing your father, and then you had other tragedies during the year. Yes. And we're in the middle of a lockdown, and you have to go through all this stuff to cross the border, and you have to keep going back and forth because you have to take care of family business stuff.
Yep, that's right. And then my brother died. And it's been very, very hard because although he was 66, well, in this, and I continued to study, and I went ahead and went to Dr. Jason Fung's website, and I got on a class. He had classes there that I could take. And so I started taking his classes, and there was a teacher there that I had met at the low carb conference when I went to one. I went to my first one, and she was there, and she was a coach there. And I thought, oh my goodness. And people were starting to say, we're having trouble with this binging stuff. And she said to me, well, why haven't you read Never Binge Again? It's like, what? What is this Never Binge Again?
Yeah, and I had never heard of the book. You were the one who introduced me to it also.
Yeah.
And I'm going to drag him on one of these days to share your story with him. He'll be so happy.
So I went ahead and it was a free copy. It was online. You could download it. You could listen to all his podcasts, but what I heard him say was there's just one simple rule. And what you need to recognize is our human brain has a primitive brain. And in that primitive brain, it wants to do three things. It wants to eat, kill, or procreate. And you have to take that primitive brain, maybe call it a name, and he suggested calling it a little pig, and you have to put it in a cage, and you have to say, no, you want to eat, you want to kill, and you want to procreate, but I have a brain that's a cortex, and you can't do it unless I let you. And so you just make yourself a rule. So I proceeded to make my rule, and here it is. I have it with me everywhere I go. And what it does is you date it, and then you say, for the next 10 days, only 10 days, I will always follow whatever meal plan you're on, always eating keto foods with less than 50 grams of total carbs, never again drink diet pop, never again eating cookies or sugar, minimizing processed foods to no more than 2 per day, and I will always exercise 30 minutes. Once I wrote that down, it was like a light switch. My pig has been locked up now for 45 days.
Yeah, you've been crushing it. And that's so important to be able to say, look, I'm not going to be the victim anymore. You put me in this situation. You took my husband from me, all these things. And you start saying, look, I'm going to take control of this situation. So many people, and I'm telling you, it's so common that is that their whole life they've either been abused, stressful life, all those things, and food has been the comfort. So in your mind, you think, I'm having pain, I need that candy, cookie, whatever. Like what you were doing is it's so important because so many people struggle with this, but they don't identify it that, they could be doing great. And then their husband yells at them and they go out and eat a whole cake. I'm not being, this is real. Like I could tell you thing after thing after thing that people did. And you go, oh my gosh, it's so self-destructive, but they feel good for a while. Then they feel terrible about themselves. They feel like they let themselves down and that they're never not worthy, but you allow the pig to make you, grovel basically. Like you're groveling at the pig, say, wait, no, like when you did that, I saw a look in your eyes like she's serious. She's not messing around. And you've absolutely been crushing it. And tell people too, unless you want to share something else, but the incident with your husband and the pizza while you're on track, and then what happened with that.
Well, the first thing I want to say that my husband is very special. He likes to give me jewelry, and he would give me jewelry, and I had trouble because the chains on my necklaces, they would twist and get knotted. So he fixed me a little place in the bathroom where I had hooks to put my jewelry on. And one day he said, I noticed you're not using that jewelry. Maybe we should put them up in the jewelry boxes if you're not going to use it, and free up that area in the bathroom. And I immediately said in my mind, I can't wear that jewelry. I'm not pretty enough. And it was like, oh my gosh, what the heck? Who said that? No, this is not true. So that is the other part. I went ahead and I got my necklace every single day. I put them on, whether I'm leaving the house or not. And he really enjoys seeing them. And
knowing you're worthy to wear that, right? Before you saw yourself as not worthy.
That's right. That's right. The next thing that happened when Dr. Glenn Livingston, when he wrote the book, Never Fast Again, Never Binge Again.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. He also did a notebook that says, I love my notebook. Now, in the instructions, it says, this is what it looks like. It says you hug it. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to hug it. And I thought, okay, this is silly, but we'll do it. He said so. And now I've discovered why. Because he helps you work through why you really want to lose weight. And that is really important to know why. And he breaks it down into little ones. And when I first started, I thought, well, this is really a lot of writing and stuff. I'll never be able to get through this. But he has worked it out so that I have now come down to narrowed exactly why I want to lose weight. Do you want me to share it?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this.
And he makes you write it so that it ends up being positive, so you can positively, when you say your why, it's a positive why. So mine is, I will never weigh 200 to 300 pounds. I will enjoy traveling to visit friends and family. I will not have food delivered as I'm able to shop and lift my own groceries. I have plenty of time to plan and prepare my meals because the many activities I'm involved in, keeping my focus on living my life. I am not tired or exhausted because I enjoy taking a daily walk through the forest to the river and with my dogs. I will never again binge my day away because my confidence is high in my success. With my success as followed: decreased blood pressure, normal blood sugar, weight, no diabetes, normal blood pressure and weight, no diabetes, heart attack or stroke to worry about as I have a healthy lifestyle. I have a new wardrobe, including colorful pants, blouses, and dresses. I enjoy selecting fresh vegetables out of my garden to eat and share with my friends and family. And I will be able to stay and care for my own home. So that has been, I'm only 40 pages into this book, and there's 300 pages in it. Can you imagine how I'm going to grow in confidence with myself as I work through this? I'm just really optimistic. The other thing that I started putting in because of the fasting is when Dr. Lenzkes said, try this fast like a girl. So I picked up a copy of that, and I have that on the agenda to work that in as I continue to grow in what I'm doing. But for right now, I'm working with Dr. Fung's protocol. It's called 42-hour times 3. And this is now moving into my 3rd week of 42 hours a week fasting, 3 times a week.
And eating 2 meals on the other days.
And yep.
And tell people what your weight loss has been.
This morning, it's now 20 pounds.
Yeah, look at that, 20 pounds this year. Like we're in, we're just barely starting February. So that is absolutely astounding. That is absolutely astounding. Plus your confidence, I see a look in your eyes that just like, I've got this, and you are like in. Before, I remember, like, and we could talk about that a little bit, just you'd be, have a stressful day, and then all of a sudden you'd be in the M&Ms and things like that would help to calm your nerves. And it's so hard because you've been through so much with your brother and your dad both passing. You're in charge of the estate. You're trying to clean out the house. You're trying to, I could just see the stress. And when you're like that, you think, gosh darn it, it's just so hard to keep focus on this. Like, I would feel so much better if I ate the cookies,
Yeah.
Like Dr. Unwin and his biscuits, he would say, oh, this patient stresses me out. I need 3 biscuits for this patient, right? So it's that how much we turn to it. And a lot of people don't even realize that's what they're doing. And it's self-destructive. But it's hard when you're in the moment. You go, forget it. That's what I want right now. I don't care if it's good for me or not. I'll worry about that tomorrow type thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And my husband, he just had his first meat crust pizza with me last night.
Oh, awesome. Well, tell the pizza story. Before we tell this one, like when your husband made the pizza and you got upset. I thought it was like that he made pizza and you smelled it and you got frustrated with him because it smelled so good and you're trying to be good. So then you went out and worked out, and and then you guys had a discussion about that after.
Yeah. And so he's been very supportive since that time. He really has. So I went and worked out while he was eating pizza. Yeah, he cooked it and ate it. And
yeah, and also it's harder. You're in the winter and you're snowing, and so it's hard to get out and it's hard to do things. And you got all this snow, you can't even get out the door. And
It's
going through
ice.
those
It's a
things.
sheet of ice.
Yeah, sheet of ice and crazy stuff out there in the
Yeah.
mountains with winds and all that. But you found a way to start exercising and taking care of yourself, and you
Yeah.
figure out a way. And so many people say, well, it's too cold outside, I can't exercise. Well, do you have a gym? Do you have a garage? Do you have a extra bedroom? Can you lean against the wall? There's so much we can do, but you've just got that motivation now, and knowing your why, I think, is a huge deal to say, okay, this is why I'm doing it, rather than saying, oh, I want those cookies right now. I'm willing to sacrifice now for tomorrow to feel better.
Well, and not only that, I wasn't able to walk over to the bunkhouse where I'm in the bunkhouse now, where I have my room. I have my treadmill, but the trouble was I was hurting so bad and I was so short of breath, I couldn't do the treadmill. So I had to start with a stationary bike, and I started at 10 minutes, and now I can do an hour. But yesterday, I did my first 50 minutes on the treadmill.
Awesome. Look at you. And that's the thing, is when that's what people don't understand too, is when you're exercising because you feel like exercising, not because like, oh, I have to exercise to lose weight. And hey, I have energy, I feel like doing stuff. And people don't realize, how that, and the other thing is how it just builds. And the other thing that you're saying, it just really brought to mind, because I was talking to someone today, one of my patients, and he's really let himself go. And so I'm trying to help him get on track, but he has back pain and knee pain. But he said, I'm not using a walker. I said, use the dang walker, get out for 10 minutes, get out for 3 minutes, walk. And I said, look, let me tell you a story, because he has a new girlfriend. His wife divorced him a while back. So he has a new girlfriend, and they travel. But the problem is, she says, look, it's a hassle. I got to take you and I have to help you and I have to do it. And he's helpless. And I said, look, let me tell you about my patient, Red. So Red came to my office, my old office, and it was probably like 20, 30 feet from the front desk to my exam room. And I come in, he's a sweet guy, really great Bostonian guy, Red Sox fan and everything. And so he comes back, and he's like, I walk into the room, and he's like huffing and puffing and breathing hard. I was like, what's wrong? He has some lung disease. And I said, we got to get you on oxygen, man. You can't live like this. This is miserable. Just going 30 steps and you're like this, forget it, man. You have to go on oxygen. He goes, Doc, I'm not going on oxygen. He goes, I'll tell you what, give me 6 weeks and I'll come back and I'll see you in 6 weeks. And if I need oxygen, I'll take it. If not, okay, we'll see what happens. So 6 weeks later, I see him like jaunting down the hallway, jumps up on the table. Hey, Doc, how are you today? I was like, what did you do? This is ridiculous. He said, I started walking. So I just started walking. I was sitting on the couch. He said I would walk 10 steps and I would sit on the bench, and then I would find the next bench and sit down. And then pretty soon I was going to every other bench. And I was going to every fifth. He goes, I walked 5 miles yesterday. I was like, wow. I mean, and he was, I can't believe it. I feel so good. But he got his body conditioned. That's exactly what you're talking about is doing. And like so my new page, I go, get your walker, take 4 steps, sit down, take 3 more steps and sit down. Whatever you got to do, but you got to get outside and see the birds. You got to know there's other things there. You can't sit in your house and watch Judge Judy all day. You got to do something with your life, right? So hopefully that lights a fire. But that's what you did exactly. You go, I can't do it now, but now look at what you're doing. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, I asked my husband, I said, look, I know the snow's thick, the ice is thick. I'm scared to death. I've already fallen on the ice once and it doesn't feel good. So every morning he walks me out here to the bunkhouse, and he put spikes on my boots, and then he'll come and pick me up, at dinner time and walk me back to the house, so that I can be sewing out here all day long. But that walking back and forth, and then once I got out to the bunkhouse, then I worked it at the treadmill just a little bit every day. But it was because of my choices for my job. I had to drive 72 miles to work one way. So I was driving 4 hours a day, sitting in my car in terrible weather. So when you start sitting, whether it's watching TV, whether it's driving, then you start losing muscle, you start losing the ability to stand up tall, to fill up the lungs. And I know all this, and it happened to me anyway, because it happens so fast.
And that's a big point. I think being a physical therapist, you see what happens when people don't take care of themselves. And like you said, the morbidly obese and all those people you're taking care of had tons of health problems too. And being able to, and then you feel like a hypocrite, like, well, I'm a physical therapist. I'm a doctor and I'm gaining weight. What the heck is wrong with me? And we think we're the problem. Obviously you're a hardworking person, you've persevered through life, you big swimmer, exercise person, and then when it happens, you're like, what in the world? Like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
At some point.
But I do know this springtime when it melts, I'm going to be on my horse.
Yeah, now you can. That's the thing, is when you see it, sometimes you have to see the final product. Sometimes we're not very good at seeing what God sees and what's going to happen. But when you're stuck in the moment, like my pants are too tight, I don't feel good. Instead of saying, okay, what can I do about this? Let me take some steps to change it. Then maybe I do need to exercise more and not eat the candy when I'm stressed out. And the other thing we find is the natural tendency with low carb, I find, is that when people's brain and anxiety and stress gets better, now you're binge eating, because most binge eating is to protect the stress. So if we get the stress fixed, then everything else gets better. We get the sleep fix and the stress fix, we're knocking out 2/3 of the problem.
Right. Is finding those ways to do it. And I definitely, that's part of my journey is, okay, now I know what I've done wrong. I did the stress wrong. I did the food wrong. I did the exercise wrong. Okay, so now we know how to do it and what to do. And I'm not listening to people lie to me that you just have to calories in, calories out. No, that's not the truth. That's a lie. And now I have a way to do stuff to make myself healthy. And I can't tell you, this fasting, my stomach feels so much better. And I didn't even know it was causing a problem.
The irony, the great part, the crazy part about it is we were both doing it independently. And I'm like, what's your fasting regimen? Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I'm doing, because I came up with that. So what works best for me. If I do a 42-hour fast and have 2 meals and a 42-hour, it's a cakewalk. It's so easy for me. And once you're fat adapted, but I've seen huge changes in my glucose tolerance and my insulin levels and the ketone levels and things like that by doing this, especially if you can combine in exercise in between. So it's absolutely astounding, but you have to be in a metabolically healthy enough place to do that, because if your insulin's 58, you're not going to be fasting. You're not going to be able to skip meals. You really have to get that under control. But we find the big one is watching the stress levels and the cortisol, like Mindy Pell's. I really started looking into the cortisol and oxytocin, and it's absolutely astounding how much of an effect it has. Our attitude being negative, and but getting out exercising and being able to say, yeah, I feel like going in to do stuff, and not say, oh, I just want to lay in bed and not deal with life anymore, basically.
Mhm. Well, and it's been interesting because I've been asking my husband for more hugs.
That's oxytocin right there. Yeah, that's good, right? That
Right.
connection, the human connection, the bonding, and when you don't feel attractive, then that affects the marriage. There's so much involved in this that we have to really step back sometimes and say, okay, why am I frustrated with my husband? Why am I upset about stuff? Why is it annoying me that he can eat whatever? Like my wife's like that too. She can eat whatever she wants and she doesn't gain weight like I do. I'm like, how can you possibly do that? So it's annoying. Like, you're so lucky. Like, you have your friend who, they don't practice, but they can shoot the basket better than you. It's like, they don't even practice, and I practice every day. And like, it's so annoying how some people are just gifted, or they have good genes, or they have habits that just work for them.
Well, it's like my husband was a hockey player. So he says, why can't you just walk like normal on the ice? It's like, what? Well, why do my feet fly out from under me? If you could make my feet stay under me, I guess I would.
Yeah, no, but some people just like they're used to it. You get used to it. And just like you, what you're doing now, there's people listening to you talk about, doing a 44-hour fast or 42-hour fast, and they're like, there's no way ever I could do it. It's just like you ran a marathon. Like, I look at you and go, running a marathon, that's crazy. I can't even imagine that. But there's certain things you do. How do you do a marathon? One step at a time, and you train and train and train, and you do the right thing. And fasting is the same way, or cutting your carbohydrates. The more times you pass it up, the easier it becomes. Like, now, the more times you pass up those M&Ms, you go, I can do this because I did it yesterday, and I can do it again.
Well, believe it or not, my husband has one of those Costco things of M&Ms on the counter. And I can tell you, my pig is not squealing. He's keeping his mouth shut, because if he did, I'd stuff it down his throat. But
Yeah,
no,
it's good to get that
it's
there's an arrogance that comes with that, where you go, look, I'm not doing it anymore. And once you make up your mind, you go, that's it. Just like if someone's pushing you around enough times, you go, that's not happening anymore. I'm done with this. And then they go, okay, I'll go pick on someone else.
if it would have been me, I would have had those gone in 2 days. And he's had them there since Christmas. How do you do that? I have no idea, but I'm
Well,
not.
that's the thing is, yeah, that's not his drug of choice, right? So that's the thing, is when you start realizing he does it because he feels like having them every once in a while. It's not because I'm stressed out, I'm mad, or I had a bad day and I'm going to have them. It's the same thing with alcohol. Some people use alcohol as their stress relief. Other people say, yeah, I enjoy having a glass of wine every once in a while with my steak, right? So it's a different thing. And it's really figuring out what works for us, because if it's not your drug of choice, it's no big. Like I've learned, like I can see people eating donuts in front of me and cake. I don't care. I look at them like it's not even like I'm using willpower. I just don't want that. I know what it
No.
does to me. So when you start seeing it for what it is, it changes things a lot.
Yeah. And I didn't start this fast right at 42 hours. I couldn't have. I did start one meal at a time. I believe that when I first came to see you, I was just doing one meal at a time and I was doing fine. But I didn't understand that our body adapts and we've got to change it up our body just does what it's smart.
It's
It
trying to
does.
save your butt. It's saying, hey, you're
Yeah,
not smart. I'm gonna take care of you. So if you're not
right.
eating, okay, I'll stop burning calories.
That's
Okay.
right.
Right. If you're eating too much, then I'll burn actually more calories, believe it or not. Like your metabolic rate goes up. So I'm not, this is a serious question. I'll ask people. It's like, okay, if you want me to slow your metabolism, what's the biggest thing we can do to slow your metabolism down?
Lose weight.
Losing weight. Yeah, we talked about that. Because losing weight, why? Because you're not carrying 50 pounds on your butt anymore. You
No.
walk around with a 20-pound backpack all day and see how many calories you burn compared to not bringing it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a big difference. So we have to adjust what we're doing with time too, and maybe adjust the fasting window, maybe adjust the caloric intake at some point, that they do matter, but you have to get over the hurdle of lowering the insulin. That's what you've done fantastically, because when you're fasting, you're lowering your insulin even more. And when you exercise, you're lowering it even more. So
Yeah.
what you're doing is making your body more sensitive to insulin as we go.
Well, and I keep my window very close. I usually don't eat until 1 o'clock, between 12 and 1 o'clock. And then I eat my dinner at 5. After dinner, brush my teeth, I'm done. That's
Yeah,
it.
that's smart. That's
That's
a
it.
good pointer, everyone. Listen to that. You after you eat your meal, go, okay, I brushed my teeth. I did that last night, as a matter of fact. My wife and I brushed our teeth because we were gonna go sit in the jacuzzi. I'm like, I'm gonna be too tired anyways afterwards. So let's just do it now. So we brushed our teeth. So yeah, then you see something, you go, oh yeah, I'm not gonna eat that. But the fact that you can walk by the M&Ms like that, like that's been there since Christmas, and you're
Yeah.
killing it. When you get that mindset, before you couldn't have, you would see him go, oh, he left them out, so I'm gonna eat them because they're there. And so many people blame their family and friends and neighbor and you know PE teacher from third grade by their shortcomings. Sometimes we go, that's it. I'm taking responsibility. I'm not dealing with this anymore.
Yeah. And he was honest with me. He says, you know what? I know in the wintertime I put in 10 pounds on because I'm not as active, and it comes right off when I start getting active again. I eat 2 meals a day. I eat when I'm hungry and I don't eat when I'm not hungry. And I don't want you to try to change what I do. And I says, not a problem. I have trouble changing myself.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
And when you get to that point when you start realizing that's how you do it, that's the thing. And then being able to support each other, and
mhm,
then also having the strength to say, I walk by those dang M&Ms and M's and I'm proud of myself because I'm not eating it and I'm not tempted to. Those kind of little uh challenges are huge. And really, like for me, as a matter of fact, it's funny, I think we talked about it during Christmas when someone gave us, my neighbors baked some sourdough bread, and it was sitting there in the kitchen. I kept looking, I go, man, that looks good, maybe I'm gonna have a piece of sourdough. No, I'm not going to. No, no. And then I told my wife, I go, either eat it or get rid of it. I don't want to look at it because it triggers me in that, right? So luckily it was gone the next day and whatever. And that's one thing I've at my old job was like that. There would be donuts and I look, oh, that looks good. But then if I use willpower for like 3 minutes, they'd all be gone because everyone had them back at their desk and let them eat it, right? So sometimes just being able to pass up stuff. Then next time you go, oh, if I passed up my favorite food, then this doesn't really appeal to me like the other thing did.
yeah. Well, I know that I was thought it was so strange because I didn't even notice him on the counter anymore, you know? And so I had told him that was my other goal is I have to learn to change what I eat to go along with low carb because that's what works for me at this point. And so that's what came about. He had his pepperoni pizza from Papa Murphy's, so it was fresh. He baked it and he ate it, and I got on the treadmill, didn't say anything. And then I my girlfriend that I was talking to, she about 4 months ago, she was having a lot of joint pain. And I said to her, I says, I think you should try carnivore. And she did try carnivore. So when I went to town, I would stop by her place and she would, because she didn't want to go out to eat, she wanted to eat carnivore. She says, "Will you just have lunch with me here at the house?" And I said, "Okay." So we started with just a hamburger patty and some cheese on it. And then this last week, she made me a meat crust pizza. And oh my gosh, it was delicious. So I immediately took the recipe and I made my first one last night. And my husband really enjoyed it. He says, "Wow, you're not going to eat half this pizza." And I'm going,
You can't eat it,
"No,
right?
you
My
can't
wife
eat
makes
it."
that, and you're like, did you do it with the sausage crust or like a
I did
hamburger?
half hamburger and half sausage. I mixed it up
Yeah.
together
Oh
and
gosh,
then
it's so
rolled it
good.
out with a rolling pin
Yeah.
and put it on the tray and baked it off.
You
And
bake it off, and then you you
Mhm.
you drain the grease off it, pat it down a little bit, and throw your stuff on there. You're good to go. Yeah, my wife, she actually in the movie Fat Fiction, she made that on the movie, and I was sitting there watching because the lady had a CGM on. I was like, I hope she did it right. And she goes, "Oh, look, my sugars dropped a little bit when I ate." Right, and she had this huge meal, and she was stuffed, and her sugars dropped, and that's what I'm seeing with my sponsor, Health Code, because I've checked them. I'm telling you, I have the CGM data. I'm looking at my ketones, and I have it's almost like I'm fasting. My response is like as if I continued my fast, even though I'm taking calories in because of the mixture. So, anyways, I think it's kind of cool when you see that and you go, okay, because if I had Health Code and my sugars spiked and my ketones drop, I go, okay, Ben, you got some more work to do. This is not good, right? But so surprisingly to myself that it didn't make any difference at all in what I was seeing. So that's kind of cool. So now I'm using that with my diabetics to say, let's see what happens to your sugars when you have this instead of having a whey shake. It's a huge difference. Even though there's
have,
whey protein in it, you have the all the good fats that go with it that really help settle
have
down the
you tried
sugars.
it in the vanilla kind in your coffee?
No, I haven't tried that yet.
I wondered, I'm trying to I thought maybe my husband would try that, but he's using heavy cream right now and doesn't seem to have an issue with it. But I thought, that might be a little better than the
Yeah,
heavy
I might do that. I might do that. Yeah, I was fasting today, but maybe tomorrow I'll do the health code with my coffee. I'll try that.
to see
It
if it
sounds really
spikes it.
good. Like we're doing the vanilla. I mean, that's got to be really good. I mean, I love the vanilla, like the vanilla and the chocolate. They're both really good. So I'm a chocolate person generally. But
Mhm.
when I tried the vanilla, I'm like, man, this is so good. I really enjoy this. And then I threw in a little bit of yesterday I threw in a little bit of heavy whipping cream and coconut, like the flake coconut. It
Yeah.
was super good. I'm like, this is like you could tell me that this is like anywhere I go, I would have that. I would pick that over a milkshake anywhere. So it's like,
Mhm.
why eat the junk stuff that's gonna make you sick when you have something that makes you taste that makes you feel really good? And I know that the insulin response because I follow it. So, anyways, those kind of things when you see it, you go, okay, I'm because again, there's a lot of stuff that says keto cereal, keto this, and the sugars are all over the place. They're using seed oils and all this stuff. They go, it's high fat. No, it's bad fat you guys are doing. So, spend a little bit more money and make it right. So yeah, he's done a great job with it. So I'm happy. I'm really happy about that. And then I'm
Well, I
double
did
checked with
get
my
my
Keto
first
Mojo.
I got my first chocolate one. I got it in the mail. So I have some, but I'm still kind of hesitating on what circumstances would you get that thought that it's calories that count. And you look at the back of the package and you go, "Oh my gosh, you mean
Yeah.
that's all days?"
Well,
But
for me,
that's
I'm
not
looking at it
true.
from that, and you go, okay, look, 400 calories, not a lot. So for me, and especially what we're doing, when you're eating every other day, I was like, okay, that's not enough calories for me, right? Because otherwise, you're on a calorie restricted diet, like what we did with Weight Watchers and all the other stuff we did. So you go, okay, I have to force it. So like yesterday, I had my health code with the coconut that thing, and I had a chaffle my wife made. You know what chaffle is?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna link you to the book. So there's a chaffle book. My wife comes out with this thing after she did Mindy's program, and then she's doing the chaffles, and so it's basically cheese waffles. So you do cheese, eggs, a little bit of coconut flour, and it's a waffle. So you could put on a little allulose syrup, or you could make it into a. You could use it for your hamburger buns, like I did that before. You could use it for, like she made. Oh my gosh, like last weekend. I'm gonna make. Sorry if you're fasting right now, anyone listening. I'm fasting, so don't worry about it. But I'm looking for that on tomorrow. Actually, I'm going to have this. She made chaffle bottom, 3 eggs, like easy over easy with 3 pieces of bacon and avocado spread on there. Oh my gosh, it was like that was like the best thing I ever had. I was like, this is, especially if you fasted the day before. I guess
Oh
anything would
yeah.
taste good. But
Yeah.
having that, so yesterday at lunch, I kind of did that, and I had one chaffle by itself and just enjoyed it, and it was like cream cheese, chaffles, but you could do pizza. You could do anything with it. It's pretty cool. Or you can make it into like a, a little bit sweeter and then put berries on top of it. And it's ridiculous. Like, anyways, anyone who hasn't done it and you hate eggs, do it that way. And so that's what I did yesterday. I had half an avocado. I was either going to put it in the shake or have it, but I decided to have it on the side. You could put one egg in that with that too. That's what Ben does.
Mhm.
And it makes it a little bit thicker. I put it in ice to make it thick. And then I had some kimchi. I like kimchi, and I had a little bit of yogurt that I made at home, that the L-reuteri, which helps increase oxytocin levels. So, and then giving your husband a hug, all those things help the feel good chemicals. And people don't realize enough the impact of stress. So that what you were dealing with was stress, was screwing up all your stress hormones, making your cortisol go up. Cortisol is saying, hey, things aren't good. You better eat more. And I'm going to release some extra sugar for you. And I'm going to store fat for you at the same time. So you're going to have high sugars. You're going to be storing fat at the same time. I'm like, well, that's not a very good trade-off. But if I can sit outside and count my blessings a little bit, I do a lot better than having to shoot a bunch of drugs to get rid of sugar that I don't need to be producing. As a matter of fact, since we've been talking about these things, I was in my backyard following my sugars, and I just sat there with my dogs, threw the ball, they're jumping in the pool, I'm laughing and watching them, I'm reading about oxytocin and just chilling, and I'm like, there's a beautiful day, everything's nice. And I look at my sugars, I'm like, ding, 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 low, 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 low. Like, if I was stressed and yelling at my neighbor all day and fighting with people, it would be high.
Yeah.
And my cortisol goes up. So why do that? It's not worth it, right?
No. And in fact, just this time that I've kind of taken a leave from my job, it's like I'm now having time to do that. Before I was running from, patient to patient to patient, home, bed, back to patient to patient.
Driving like that, that's exactly what I was doing for
Yeah.
20 years,
So it's kind of nice to take that time because, when I I I'm 70 years old now. How do I want the rest of my days to be? I choose. I'm the CEO of my own life. So what do I want? If not
Yeah.
now, when?
Yeah,
And
that's a ton of wisdom right there. Yeah, and at some point you go, okay, what's worth it? What's not? What's stressing me out? What brings me peace? Like, I'm not going to go the rest of my life and be stressed out and argue with people. I just refuse to do that, right?
yeah, exactly.
So what's life's best medicine for you? I have to ask you before we go.
You mean what do I like to do?
Yeah, what's life's best medicine? Where do you go? Hey, here's where I find my peace. Here's where I find my joy. Here's when things are going wrong. Here's what I lean on. What is that for you? Some people it's swimming. Some people it's collecting rocks. Some people it's faith. Some people it's helping neighbors. Whatever. Like, well, where do you say, hey, this is where I'm designed to do. This is my thing.
I really like to sew. I love to quilt. This is this is one of my creations. It's a peacock.
Yeah, for people listening, you're missing out on the peacock that you made. That's amazing. I was looking at that while you were talking actually earlier, and you got all
And
your spools up there. So that's your escape. You go down there and you start doing your thing.
I do. And this is a dolly blanket for my granddaughters.
Wow, that is amazing.
I made
Okay,
7 of
people, you
them.
got to watch this. Watch it on Rumble. That's where I prefer you watch it. Yeah, that's cool.
I
That's
made
amazing.
7 of them. So I have a design wall that I design my quilts on.
Oh,
And
wow.
2 of the dolly ones are on top of the next plan. That's the next 2 quilts I'm going to be making. It's You Are My Sunshine.
Yeah, so you go there and you just do your quilting and that shuts you down, right?
Oh yeah, it's nice. And my husband put a little TV on that I could put my movies on and my DVDs that I enjoy, not crap, Sound of Music.
Yeah, yeah, things like that. And that again, if you watch stressful stuff that stress you out, your oxytocin gets screwed up and your cortisol goes up. Who wants to do that? So I
Yep.
think that's a really important thing, and finding your peace in that, and I know faith plays a huge role in your life too. We've talked about that a lot, and just finding something where you go, okay, how do I relieve the stress I'm having? But it seems like your stress level has dropped dramatically when I see you now, right?
Yes, it has. 50%. And as long as I don't have to get involved with my dad's estate right now, I'm doing really good. But I'm careful with that. I try not to get too involved with it. Just be a good sister and listen. And the rest, I tend to let it go pretty
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah, that's really important stuff, and those things, and I've just watched you grow as a person, and having this new confidence that you have, this new like steadfastness, I would say, where you stand. I'm standing my ground. I'm not backing down this time, and it's been amazing to see. And that's why I'm so glad when I asked you to do this podcast. I think so many people out there are just like, because I've seen it in your eyes too. And when you came down and we saw each other for the low carb San Diego meeting, at that point you were going through the throes of stress and anxiety and traveling and going through everything, and you're like, I don't think I can do this. It's just too much right now. It's like it's just another thing I have to deal with. But then you step through it and you go, no, I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep going. And look what's happened, and how everything get thrown in. Like you picked up one piece of the puzzle at a time of what works for you. It doesn't matter what. And someone I just talked to today, she's like she wants to compete with everyone. I go, compete with yourself. Like
Mhm.
don't put stress on yourself and like weigh yourself 7 times a day. Relax, because you're going to gain weight doing that. If you go, hey, I don't care what the scale says. I understand the science. If I want to do it, I'll do it. If I don't, like some people weigh themselves every day and go, oh, I gained 2 pounds. Okay, I should lose that tomorrow based on what I've seen in the past. And it's not, they don't stress out. For other people, gain 14 ounces and they're like, life's over and they're stressed and angry at everyone and go off the rails because it's like, I didn't lose weight. I'm not doing this anymore. But the people who trust the process and just go, okay, I'm going to keep going. Like what you did is like, and this is another point I want to make before we end is so many people have the book knowledge. They've read Jason Fung, they've read Taubes, like you say, and all these people. But then you go, how do I apply that to my life? And how do I use that when, it's just like people have these, it's funny. It just reminds me of a thing where I don't know if you remember, I don't know if this still happens, but they would say, okay, here's oh, I dropped my card, but here's the card. Okay, if you're having a discussion or an argument with your fat spouse, you go, whoever has a card could talk, the other person can't. But in the heat of it, you're like, screw the card. I'm mad, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work because I'm not waiting to you for you having to give me the card. I want to talk now, right? That kind of thing. So sometimes it's that in the heat of battles when I'm saying you forget, like, and you go back to the old ways. And I was that thought came to my brain the other day. It's like so many people are afraid of gaining their weight back, and I find like if you go back to your old ways, that's when you gain your weight back. When you go back to what you knew, like your coping strategy, you say, I'm stressed and I have to have a cookie. Now you're saying, I'm stressed. Let me go and do some sewing, right? Let me do something creative. And it takes your mind off it because if we're doing things we enjoy, then we don't worry about it. No one in the middle of a massage says, okay, stop the massage. I'm going to go eat something. I'm starving. Like you go, okay, I'm going to wait till my massage is over because I'm enjoying this, or if you're in a great conversation with a friend, or if you're on a long walk and you're doing something you enjoy, or you're halfway through you're building a quilt and you go, okay, like you could be engrossed in that and you can go, 18 hours and not even think about food while you're just doing your thing.
That's right. And I know my husband just built me a greenhouse last year, so now I've got a greenhouse that I can, when the snow leaves, then I'm going to be out in that greenhouse with the plants. So, and I have a few plants here, some pepper plants and
Yeah.
blackberry or blueberry plants.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Mhm.
Karen, thank you so much for joining me. Everyone, listen. There's a lot of wisdom. There's so much wisdom here. There's so much here. This is amazing. And Karen's been doing such great work. And just having breakthroughs. And I think really if you're that person who's given up, you don't want to do it. You've done it so many times, you failed, you gained weight. Like, Karen's an example of just persevering and saying, okay, let me look for the next switch I have to pull. Let me change this dynamic. Let me do this and not giving up because one thing doesn't work just because your friend went carnivore and they lost all this weight. I did one meal a day for a year and it made no difference. And now I'm doing what Karen's doing and it's working. So, it's just, you start realizing maybe that's not for you. Maybe you said, oh, I'm not doing that kind of fast. Maybe I'll do, eat, twice a day or whatever. It's just figuring out what works for you ultimately. But I find that when people get their nutrition right, they get their sleep right, the stress starts taking care of itself, and the diet takes care of itself when you're on track and when you don't feel like I have to eat this food. Because the reality is we can go a couple hours without eating and not die. Trust me on that one, right? So we are very our body is just we have to get out of the way sometimes. And sometimes we overthink it, cause more stress. We get frustrated with ourselves because we're not seeing the progress we want. But if you trust the process and say, okay, one step at a time, and then sometimes every once in a while, looking back to see where you came from, because sometimes you get so frustrated and they go, oh, I'm down 18 pounds. Okay. I'm way better than I was 4 months ago or 2 months or last week. So it's just trusting that process. And then I think the other thing that Karen's doing that's powerful is she has a vision of where she's going. So sometimes we don't know what we're doing and why we're doing it, and then we get lost on the road somewhere. So being able to visualize and say, okay, I want to wear those pants that I haven't been able to wear for 2 years, or I want to wear my necklace and feel good about myself. The positive things, and say, hey, this is what I'm going to see. I remember you saying that of, hey, I want to be able to see my knees again. I want my ankles to have definition. All those little things that say, okay, it's worth it. Just like when I went to med school, if I just stopped when I, realized how hard the road was, like, hey, I want to be sitting here with you, Karen, it makes it all worthwhile. Like all these things that my career path is like, it's all worthwhile. Like all those days of missing Christmas and being up late and, nasty stuff in the hospital I had to deal with, and, all those things, you go, it's right now in this moment, it's all worth it, so to see you succeed and to be filled with life and hope, man, this is awesome.
Well, I'm grateful for your teaching.
Yeah, and I'm just bypassing, I'm just throwing you stuff that I've learned from Jason Fung and Ben Bickman and Gary Taubes and Tro, all those people that have just done such great stuff. So it's amazing how we could just find one tool that works for you, one tool that works for someone else, but it may not be the same tool. There's no one size fits all. We've all learned that, but I think persevering and enjoying the journey too, and just saying, okay, I'm going to make the best of this thing. Maybe I'm not going to eat my cookies, but is my life lacking if I don't have cookies? Is that what my life is based on? Is not having sourdough bread one time or whatever, and maybe have it every once in a while if you can. If you can't, then you say, I can't have it at all, because if I have one, I'm in the gutter for a week eating sourdough bread or cookies or whatever. So yeah, there's so much great wisdom here. And I thank you so much for coming on. I know you're not like excited about speaking in public and doing this, but you crushed it.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend, everyone. And again, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, give yourself a break, give others a break, and, take control when you can, step into life and enjoy it and enjoy the journey. Thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information, and hopefully this helps you. Have a great day, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your support.